Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our first podcast ever. Yes, that's right, our first podcast. And it's going to be a regular thing around here. I believe one podcast each week going to be fine. So, here tonight we have three fine gentlemen with us. And we're going to talk about our movement, the New Way movement about nationalism, uh, modern day politics, and so on. So, let's start with Jake. Jake, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, my name is Jake Leone. I am a political science researcher. I mostly study NS and different nationalistic systems. Um, yeah, I'm involved in the New Way. I lead their propaganda department, and I'm also involved in a couple different educational projects that are surrounding nationalism and looking to bring education to the wider community.
That's great. Jared, why don't you introduce yourself?
How you doing, everybody? As you heard from Gio, I am Jared. I've been in the movement for 30 years. I got introduced to basically the movement at a very young age because I grew up in Chicago. So I didn't trust most of the basketball Americans. Then I went over to got woken up to the silly boys at the age of 13 because of Pastor Butler and his movement when I went there for just for a camping trip. Didn't know where I was going, and I got woken up to the factor. And I already had some of those knowledge in my head because a lot of the stuff didn't make sense to me, and to me, I wanted to dig in deeper, and I had family who was part of World War II. So I dug in deeper by asking them questions on how everything was and was it all true, this and that. And it got me into the status that we're been lied to. And that's when I got my hands on one of my favorite books when I was in school. It was called the Big Blue Book. And it's a big history book. It's one of the things that got me in trouble a lot because they had basically the opposite of what you got taught in school, and but it let me know the truth. So it was a good thing, but not towards the school sense. But other than that, I've been doing that since. So that's a little bit about me. If I keep on going, you guys will be here for too damn long.
Great introduction. Very interesting. Derek, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Derek, as Gio mentioned, and I am the chief recruiter for the New Way, and just reaching out to other groups and getting people involved, trying to get people off the internet into some real life action. I am the newest to the movement out of everybody here, as far as I know. I'm more of like a last year or so guy, but I've had been drinking out of a fire hose, learning a lot. So that's a quick introduction on me. I don't know. What else do you want to know about me, Gio?
Well, I want to know what woke you up or what radicalized you into this movement.
Let's see. I think it was around early last summer. I remember reading some stuff on Twitter about a couple of guys made some really long threads, breakdowns on why Great Britain and Churchill were the aggressors during World War II, and really started it, and kind of gave a defense for why Germany was in a reasonable position to invade Poland, and that it was really not Britain's business to be involved there. And that made me question a lot of things. I started going down some other rabbit holes, on the silly billies and whatnot. Um,
more like a rabbi hole.
yeah, right, exactly. And just started noticing a lot more things. All the pieces fit together pretty easily once you're looking for it. So, yeah, that's a pretty brief explanation, I think.
Yeah, well, when a crow learns pattern recognition, it's cute and funny, but when I do it, I'm anti Semitic for some reason. Yeah. And Jared more or less explained what woke him up. He woke up from a young age, he said from his early teens. So, Jake, why don't you tell us what woke you up? What radicalized you?
Yeah, so I've always noticed a difference between the people and how they like to communicate and behave. I served in the military very closely with other races, and I would say made some friends out of them. But getting to know them a little bit more and see things firsthand, it kind of unraveled for me, and it was more so logic that pushed me into, I guess, racial realism or biological determinism. And then as I continued my schooling and my education, studying criminology, I just came to this conclusion through studying different recidivism rates in different populations, different perceptions to police officers, and the calls by different communities. And eventually I realized that I built my worldview, and I found a worldview that perfectly encapsulated everything that I've came to understand through logic. So it was a really it was mostly logic. It was never hate or anything along those lines.
Sure. Well, logic is not very popular these days, so
No.
you have to be nice, smile for the camera, and take it. This is what is expected from us. Forget your identity, forget your racial consciousness, forget your culture, forget your ancestors. Yeah, that's what it's been fed to us through Hollywood propaganda, through the internet memes, through TV shows. The list goes on and on. So, naturally, I should say what radicalized me. Well, I'm very different from everyone because nothing woke me up, actually. Nothing radicalized me because my father is a very erudite person when it comes to general knowledge, when it comes to history, when it comes to especially history of World War II. As you've known, that Romania was under communist rule from quite some time, more than 40 years. And books like My Struggle, the Austrian painter wrote that book, were banned in the communist regime of Romania. Nobody was allowed to read any book that wasn't sponsored or propagated by the state. It was more or less a closed country, both culturally and both economically. We traded with the Soviet Union and other countries from the communist bloc. And my father was friends with a librarian, and he more than friends, but you get the gist. And he got his hands on My Struggle, the Protocols of you know who, and many more books that were banned in Romania at that time. And he woke up, and he was always a skeptical person. I think that I inherited that from him. And he hated the communist regime. He was always a rebellious type. And he And he taught me since I was a kid, a literal kid, about World War II, about the silly billies, about the banking cartels, about the Rothschilds, about rewriting of history, and not only rewriting of World War II, many, the Napoleonic Wars, the French Revolution, and so on. The Spanish Inquisition, and so on. And yeah, and also I've learned from my great aunt, who passed on. My great aunt and my grandfather, they lived through World War III. World War II, World War III. I will live through World War III. Yeah, and she told my father, and my father told me about the. I remember specifically a story that she told me. She told me that at the early stages of World War II, Germany was, as you know, allied with Romania, and they were 10 children. Their family was 10 brothers and sisters, large family, and one night German soldiers came. One evening, German soldiers came to their doorstep and they asked for food. And they paid for that food. They paid with German marks, the equivalent, you know. And they were very nice. That was at the early stages of World War II. And in 45, my great uncle died in World War II. He stepped on a landmine, and funny enough, the war would have ended 2 weeks later. So he could have escaped, and back then in 45, Romania, you know, it was occupied by the Soviet Union. And the Soviet soldiers, the communists, raped the eldest sister of the family. And they stole everything from their garden. Yeah, that's the difference between the narrative and the truth. The narrative is that, oh, the Germans were the evil incarnate, the worst. But the Allies and the Soviet Union, they were liberators. Yeah, right.
And Dobre, how is it now in Romania with that book you previously mentioned and other similar? Are they freely distributed, or is it still relatively restricted?
No, you can. We have it available in the largest book distributor. I think Cărturești it's called. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, you can buy it. You can buy it, but a very heavily censored version, not the original version. Yeah.
It's all you could get nowadays, just the edited version. Trying to find an actual real copy of it, very, very hard. I do have one at home myself, 1942 original print. Well, their second print of it, I should say. I do have one of those copies of it. Beautiful book. That's why I always tell everybody go to the Thomas Dalton version. As the closest you could ever find to being truthful. There's so many edits in the other one, it's ridiculous.
That's true.
Those original 1942s, and those are very expensive. That was a good get.
I get it from my I'd say my grandfather-in-law. Me and him, he used to be a fighter pilot for the Germans back in War II. And He wrote a lot of his own writings. I wish I was able to get those before he passed away. And I would love to read those because he actually got to meet the great man himself and numerous amounts of other people of Germany back in the World War II, and his writings would have been phenomenal to have. But never got my chance. Family, when he passed away, basically got rid of most of their books. I went through it and tried to take as much as I can to save them. But because that was a part of history that you can never get back, the truth about a lot of stuff. And as I have that book, it's like a treasure.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagree that you can't get back parts of history because, as you've seen from the last couple of years, uh, the world is beginning to wake up to the banking cartels, the usual suspects. So I think the internet, it's a wonderful thing. It's a double-edged sword for sure, but it's a wonderful thing because the truth will spread like wildfire, as you've seen from the last 2 years. I think the main catalyst from this mass awakening to World War II, to the banking cartels, to all this stuff is because of October the 8th or 2023, when it was that terrorist attack from Israel, and they started the Israel-Palestine full-on war. I think that was the catalyst.
Yes, that was one of the things that woke up a lot of people, but also woke up a lot of people is BLM rioting in the streets during the COVID when nobody else was allowed to do anything. Nobody was allowed to be out there, but they're allowed to be out there to destroy our streets, destroy our towns. We weren't able to do anything to combat that. And our politicians weren't helping one bit either. They were inciting most of the violence to continue.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We don't have that in Eastern Europe. In Romania, we definitely don't have that.
It seems like
Good thing that it has reached out to.
Yeah, but I've seen here and there stickers of Antifa. Funny enough, yeah. But I've never seen them protest. Maybe they weren't paid by Soros. Who knows? Yeah. So I want to talk about more about our movement. Who is it for, and what is our aim, and what it means to each and every one of you individuals? Why don't you start, Jake?
Yeah, so the movement I follow, and that the New Way follows, is NS. What it means to me is a combination of the recognition of blood and of the tie that exists between us, so that those of European descent, wherever they may be, and the other half of it, the socialist half, is the organization and united orientation of the society. So I believe that a society should be united. I think otherwise it's not really truly a society, at least one that's not going to progress. At best, it could hope to stagnate. So that's really what it means to me, is societal progression. It means life. Otherwise, we face death through various means, whether that's the degradation of the cultural spark that exists through blood, or just through actual physical death. So it means a lot to me personally, and that's where I go with it.
Fine answer. Jared, why don't you pick up where Jake left off?
When I came to the New Way, I've been by myself for quite a long time. Just doing what I normally do, would go to kind of town hall meetings whenever I'm in town to speak up about certain things, try to get the education right for kids, get the crap out. And when I came across New Way, they have the same mindset that I want. I don't like the bad actors that we have out there using our Roman salutes as intimidation factors, yelling stupid ass crap, what really makes the Hollywood version of us come out live. So I want us to know that we are the average white want to live in our white communities, our white states, our white nations, but peace, not with this constant bullcrap where we have to walk down the street, look over our shoulder because we have other people that absolutely hate us from a propaganda, what has destroyed us for so many years. And from false accusations to this made up bullcrap. And they don't stand for that idiocracy that floods our NS image. And that's the way I would love to see the New Way keep going and make sure we don't get that image portrayed. And so far, I have not seen that. And we don't have any bad actors. We get a lot of good people, a lot of great, straightforward type people, very intelligent. And that's what we need, not these slack-jawed yokels who just say whatever comes to mind because just out of pure hate. You gotta have, if you have hate, you have to have love, but you also have to have that happy medium and know where that happy medium has to be and not be stupid and go out in the streets and do some of the idiotic things like a lot of these groups are doing. The New Way's not doing that. They're gonna be doing something a lot different, and it makes me happy to see. I can wait for the future to see what else we're gonna do.
Great. Derek, your turn.
Yeah. So Jake hit on the good like ideological points, and then I think Jared hit more on the like the real life action aspects. And I'll just go off of what both of them said. So as far as like ideologically, it means like preservation and like preservation of heritage, culture, blood ties, as Jake put it. Things that the modern society's kind of lost and everyone's feeling kind of disconnected. There's obviously something there. I think everyone can feel that. So we're trying to show people like what that is and how they can get it back. And then as far as like real life action, we're looking to do actual like outreach, actual relief aid, for like natural disasters, stuff like that. So some of our European brothers can see there's actually people out there who still care about them and who are still willing to help and build things. On the economic side, eventually we're probably trying to build like some sort of parallel economy of the sort. And so right now we're in the stages we're probably trying to build and educate people, and then later we'll be getting into some more I don't know, political stuff. Maybe it would be more obvious from the outsider's perspective.
Great answer. So naturally, I should say what the New Way means to me. So the New Way, it's actually the old way, if you think about it.
Yeah, in many ways.
Yeah, the New Way, it's a very vague name, and it's intentionally, I think. And it's actually the old way, something that was tried for thousands and thousands of years of European history, and not only European history, the world history, but we are pan-Europeans. We are pan-European nationalists. That doesn't mean that we strive for the creation of a huge nation state without border. No. Every single country should have its borders. Yes, its own national, cultural identity, religious identity. However, the purpose is to bring all people of European descent together, realize that we are not enemies. Russia is not the enemy of Germany or the whole Europe. USA is not the enemy of Europe or Russia. It's a wake-up call, I believe, this movement that we are trying to propagate. And also, our movement is made to wake everyday people up and to realize their value as individuals, as white individuals, their cultural heritage, and their right to remain and have their own culture into their own countries. That's all. I mean, if you think about it, we're not that radical or, I don't know, extremists. We're just guys from the 20s, if you think about it. We're just guys from the 1920s. White guys from the 1920s. That's it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, if I could add on to that point. Actually, I wanted to mention real quick to add on to what Derek said. We are having our first day of action for the New Way on April 19th, where we actually are taking action. We have so far 7 countries, 15 states, and 3 continents that's going to be participating. So it's going to be a pretty big thing. But to speak to what you were saying, I agree with you. I think that it's interesting that we are painted as extremists when these are very normal views. What we are essentially saying is that we do not want to be culturally enslaved. And what cultural national enslavement happens when we start lacking the ability to freely associate and to make determinations for our own well-being, for our own people. And that's exactly what happened. So we are the farthest thing from extremists. We're actually very conservative in the traditional sense.
We are basic conservatives from the 19th century, if you think about it.
Maybe even more recently than that.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, look.
Well, 19th century, 1800s.
I would say, look, in my mind, in talking about American politics, Republicans and Democrats are basically different sides of the same coin.
For sure, yeah.
And this is how I see them. The Democrats are liberals from the 21st century, and Republicans are liberals from the early 20th century. That's how I see them, if you think about it. Yeah. More accurate. Yeah. I would say also that our movement, the New Way, and if you think about it, the New Way, our movement is basically a symptom. It's a symptom of globalism. Globalism regarding to our culture. We don't want consumerism to be part of our culture, for example, Hollywood propaganda, or this cultural and ethnical globalism that we all are a melting pot of race. No, we're not. We're vastly different. From bone structure, from culture, from temperament, from IQ, from every point. The Chinese are not the same as us. The Middle Eastern people are not the same as us. Africans are not the same. And we do not belong in a melting pot. Funny thing, what was the guy's name who first coined the term melting pot? I think Jake knows. Do you know?
Not off the top
I
of my
don't
head.
remember off the top of my head.
I can tell you what he looks
I know.
like, but
Yeah.
We can tell
Yeah.
you which tribe he belongs to. Yeah, of course.
Silly boy.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, you get one guess.
Yeah.
But I think and Jake hit on this when he was doing his introduction, that it is important to remember and to know that this doesn't come from a position of hate.
Not at all.
That's not what we're about. That's not what motivates us. It's just from recognizing reality and out of a love, a bond for our own people. That's really the driving force.
Sorry for that. My dog just barked.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
I think. Oh, I think my folks are home. Anyway, yeah. Also, I want to say something controversial, but again, what's new on this channel? I want to say that hate, the emotion of hate, is it a bad thing? I mean, think about it. The emotion, the hate emotion, it's natural. Comes from a point of love for our people, for our families, for our culture, for our folk. And yes, our movement doesn't come from a place of hate. Everybody should realize that. We don't hate other people for their skin color. We don't. No. We just say that what is obvious. And this global experiment that is globalism, it's a failed experiment. I'm sure that you guys are very, very familiar with the Kalergi plan. Jake, are you familiar? Yeah,
of course,
yes.
Yeah, and
we see
funny
it.
enough, yeah, we see it in full swing right now more than ever. But yeah,
That's
and
something.
oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say that's something I've noticed too. Is as far as what you were saying earlier with the internet being a double-edged sword, where on one hand we have access to all this information, and on the other hand, a lot of it's incorrect. So we could be told that this is a peer-reviewed journal saying that you're not being replaced, and as you're looking around you and you're seeing more and more of your class or your workplace be filled with people who don't look like you, and you're the whole time you're just being told right to your face that you're not being replaced. Well, I have eyes. Same thing with crime statistics. I don't need a peer-reviewed research article, and I don't need a chair of some department at some university to tell me what I can see with my own eyes.
Also, the statistics don't hold any water when it comes to reality. The statistics are clear as day. I mean, white Europeans are born less and less. More immigrants are coming from Africa, from the Middle East, from Pakistan, from India, from Nepal, from China, from Indochina, and so on. I mean, it's basic knowledge at this point. Go ahead, Jared.
Seeing all that immigration makes you, like you said, the emotional hatred, because they're doing nothing but destroying our way of life, our culture, by bringing in the complete and utter filth. The Middle Easterns that we're dealing with are ones who are basically Serbian to the Jewish, pardon my language, but the silly boys and the American ideology. And to fight over the regime, but due to they couldn't do that, especially the ones that came from Afghanistan, they were all involved with sexual misdemeanors, and they came to basically all of our European states. They're causing nothing but havoc. They're destroying a lot of great places, a lot of beautiful places in France, Germany, Belgium, Norway, even Sweden's taking one of the biggest hits.
Mm-hmm.
Sweden.
Yeah, now England, this is a total loss. That I will say that whole island has been turned into basically a new third world for the Muslims, and it's a crying shame. It's how much history our Anglo-Saxons have out of England, and to see it just absolutely dismantled by the silly boys and the fellowship of the royal court that come out of there. It's destroyed everything, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
So that was my emotional rant for our European brothers.
Yeah, Sweden, Germany, France, and the UK have been turned into economic zones. They're not anymore countries, nation states. They're not. They're economic zones, and they want the same thing to happen to Eastern Europe. But thankfully, Eastern Europe it's pushing back against this. Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Serbia, all those nations.
Even Turkey's fighting back.
Yeah, well,
They even have they had a nationalist leader for maybe the last 6 years. I don't know if he won again or not, but he was doing some remarkable things down there in Istanbul.
yeah,
He even had a picture. Never allow in the Turkish language. Never allow George Soros and his puppeteers into the Turkey residence anymore. So they're waking up to the fact.
yeah. Well, Turkey. I have some beef, let's say, with Erdogan. With he's not. I don't think he's our ally. I don't think because he's a snake.
Yes, as all
He
politicians are these days.
yeah, but
Trust all every word they say.
yeah, but he's a special kind of. But let's get back on track. Let's talk about our movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that point about
Please.
how Europe is being intentionally run over and destroyed, I do want to make the point. I don't want anyone watching the Black Pill because it's not over. Especially like demographically, Europe is still much better off than like the United States. Like we're down to like 58%.
Yeah.
White, I think.
Yeah.
And most European countries are still over like 75%. Like it can be turned around very quickly. You just have to have the will to do it.
We're a total of only 6% of the population of the Earth. So we're still we should be considered the minority completely because how little that we do have left. But yes, in certain areas we do still have the high percentage. But yes, we are only 6% of the population. And we're slowly declining. So it's still declining.
I think UK and France are the worst examples of demographic replacement, and closely, I think it's Germany. But you see, Eastern Europe, despite being under communist rule for almost 50 years, they maintained their culture, they maintained their racial identity. They didn't welcome that many refugees from war-torn countries, from Africa, from the Middle East, and so on. Funny enough. Exactly. And I want to make a point that we, the new wave movement, and I urge every single nationalist from Europe and North America to stop using their language. Stop using the language they use, like, oh, racist, or xenophobe, or I don't know, homophobe, or any of this language. This is just subversion. Those the you know the tribe had tried to erase the meaning of many important words and change their meaning for more than 100 years by now, and it all became begun with Marxism. Marxism is the main catalyst for all this changing of the meaning of words.
Yeah, I mean, because if you change the meaning of a word, it's harder to think of the original term, right?
Exactly.
Like the word nation originally referred it. I mean, in my mind, it still does, but unfortunately, in most people's minds, it doesn't. Referred to people, like a group of people sharing a common ancestry and language, and now it's basically synonymous with country, or just an arbitrary border. I mean, it's pretty meaningless at this point.
Yeah, well, those borders are not arbitrary. They're especially in Europe. Yeah, well, borders in, let's say, Africa, yeah, they are arbitrary when you see those straight lines. Yes. However, those are ethnically drawn borders. The language, those borders were drawn by language. Of course, there are many countries that don't justify their existence, and many countries that deserve more land, and to welcome the ethnical minority from other country back into their own country. Case in point, Romania. There are lots of Romanians in Ukraine, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that borders are arbitrary all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, most cases they're not. But I mean, there are some cases where they're just drawing borders, and it's just like, okay, like like after a war, after World War One, when Germany lost like huge populations of Germans to other countries, like that was pretty arbitrary, for example.
Yeah. Well, that was intentional. I think that that was intentional, because they wanted to weaken Germany as much as they could.
Oh yeah, I mean, what was that quote from Churchill? Or was it Churchill? I think it was Churchill. At the end of World War One, he said, "If Germany does business with anyone else in the next 50 years, this war would have been fought for nothing."
Yeah.
Okay, so we fought the war to destroy Germany. Okay.
Yeah.
And we wonder why they had a gripe with everybody else. Why they were so mad.
Yeah.
To speak to what Derek was just saying, I also agree. It's weird that we, for 3,000 years, the term nation has meant something very specific. It comes from the Latin natio, which, so if you look into the etymology of the word, it comes from Latin, and it essentially means a race, or like a clan. So there was always a racial component to it. And then at some point it stopped meaning that. But if you look at political science, we still use the terminology nation, state, country. They all mean different things. And that's a really important differentiation to make, especially when we start talking about nationalism and we say something about American nationalism, and you could argue that there was founding intentions between, or founding context of who was allowed to be a citizen of the United States at the time of its founding. But overall, people recognize that all races can be American now. So when you say American nationalism, it can mean a lot of different things. So it'd be nice if we could start using the correct terminology.
Yeah, well,
go back to Go back to what the Declaration of Independence actually says on it.
Yeah.
To ourselves and our posterity.
Yep. It even has.
There's only one way to interpret that.
Yep. You're not getting everybody's best the way they wanted it in the beginning. They're definitely not getting that.
And I think that the main catalyst of all this demographic replacement, if you think about it, is to the main goal is to transform America into an economic zone, and not only America, Europe as well. And because it's more profitable for the powers that be, for the banks, for the real estate giants, for the military industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean, if you can sell things in a country with a higher standard of living and make it in another country, that kills the like the purchasing power of the country with the higher standard of living. Drives everyone's wages down. And then if you import a bunch of people from another part of the world where they're used to very low standards of living, they're going to work for less here. And that further drives down wages. It hurts everybody else. Oh, but GDP goes up. Like, everyone else suffers.
Yeah.
GDP is a useless number, in my opinion.
In my opinion, GDP reflects the total amount of purchasing power that country has, but it doesn't reflect the reality of the common man.
Yeah. If a company is earning more, and then the net earnings go up, but it's concentrated in the hands of a certain couple people, the number goes up, but society suffers as a total.
Yeah, more often than not, I've seen a pattern that it's happening exactly the same in my country, Romania. Yeah, if you look at the statistics, our GDP actually grew in the last 3 years, but the people are not better off. Why? Because the real estate giants, the mega corporations, they earn more. That doesn't mean that the people are better off for it. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly why NS doesn't use these capitalistic measurements like GDP to establish the quality of life of the individual. So a lot of people argue GDP against an NS economic system, but it doesn't make any sense because that's not by the metrics we're going by. We're going by how good is your life. That's what I care about. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
How good is your life? How many kids you have? What's your how is your health? I think a society based around health would be a much better society than what we have. Because let's face it, globalism doesn't care about the individual's health. NS does. Nationalism does. And I think there are a couple sprinkled around Europe and also America, a couple of politicians that actually care about the people and not their poll numbers or their votes or whatever, or the benefactors, let's say.
That's one of the
I'm
parts.
sure there are a few.
Sorry, Derek, go ahead.
No, I didn't have much to say there. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that's one of the parts I really enjoyed about reading about some of the programs of NSDAP Germany. For example, the Strength Through Joy program, where they introduced cultural activities and other things, because it's important, speaking to health, it's not just physical health, it's also cultural and spiritual health that feed into the overall state of a healthy being. And I really liked reading about those types of programs, and additionally the aspects of preventative medicine and other sort of setting up different spas and saunas and stuff like that for the betterment of the community. And then you look at our current medical system, and it's the exact opposite. If you were to speak about preventative medicine, I mean, you're going to have to go to a private clinic, and it's going to be very expensive. So it's interesting that nobody's really concerned about our health or our quality of life in the system, and yet people still argue to maintain it.
Well, it's because the government doesn't really care. And when you don't have a government that doesn't care about your health and your aspects of life other than their money, you're never going to have that. And that's one thing when you pointed on that will be a very good thing for us to try to push and implement, even on just making small little flyers with those kind of points to it. Because those, even though not many people like flyers or stickers, but when they have actual true quotes and true things to look at, but possibly a QR code to take you to those references and make people see the truth behind the lie. And it could really wake up a lot more people, and more than is already waking up as it is, to a smarter way of thinking. Might even raise some of their IQs a little bit more. But you guys all have fairly good points. That's why I like the new way.
I would say that our movement is also a reaction to globalism. Globalism is a business. That's why, like Jake said, the capitalist system, doesn't care about health. It cares only about profit, and it's all a big business. Why? Because what are the three main industries in the world? The energy, yes, we all need energy. Agriculture and pharmaceutical. The pharmaceutical giants are literal giants because they want us sick. They want a society that is physically sick, so that they invent more pills, more vaccines, of course. And how you do it? Well, you poison the food industry with GMOs, with preservatives, with artificial sweeteners, sugars, fats. And how do you combat that? Well, with this pill, because this pill, it's good for you, you know. And if you scroll on the TV, out of every 10 commercials, how many of them are for pharmaceutical products? How many of them are?
Feels like about half. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think there are 8 out of 10, at least in my country.
Yeah, I would say at least 50% for me.
I think it's 80% for whenever I scroll to the TV with my folks.
I don't know. There's a lot of commercials for food too.
Which brings up another point too, as far as pharmaceuticals. A lot of people have an issue with a state-ran pharmaceutical or medical system, but in reality, the current one we have, who does the medical and pharmaceutical systems answer to? They answer to their shareholders. That's their legal obligation. But in a properly functioning state, they would be answering to the nation. So they're not interested in profits. They're interested in improving the health of the nation, which is what these private companies should be doing, but they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a reason that people have that aversion is because they've lived under a state that does not serve the people for so long. They think it's like impossible for that to happen. And like a part of the reason for that is because, you know, in a multinational, multicultural country, that just doesn't really happen. There's no ties anymore. Um, I mean, I think that's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, well, and also the globalism part about it. If you live in a big city like I do, you live in a, let's say, a building, a large building, a block, 10 stories high, and I don't know, 25 in length. We also have this very ugly communist architecture, and you don't know anybody. You live like sardines, literally like sardines in a box, thousands of people, but you know nobody. Oh, sure, you wave at your neighbors sometime, but you don't know them. You don't know their first name. You don't know their favorite color. I don't know. You don't know their favorite food. You don't have a relationship, and that is what I think. What globalism is. If you look at the statistics, we humans inhabit less than 5% of the habitable global surface. Why? Because it's easier to build up high. It's easier to build uh, big buildings and stick together a bunch of people and living like sardines than to expand. And I think that is a very sick thing for society as a whole, for the global society as a whole. What do you guys think?
I feel like there's some like esoteric topic here that I'm not knowledgeable about. Something with like earth vibrations or something.
No, 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 no. I was talking very realistically.
I feel like we come together because we naturally strive for community. I think it's an evolutionary advantage for us, and I think coming together we become so much stronger, and so we naturally gravitate towards that. But now we're at the point where, like we talked about earlier, we don't know how to define nation. We don't have these solid identities that we can identify in each other, and I think that's really the Europeans are the only one who don't have it. And for Americans, it kind of makes sense because after the Revolutionary War, a lot of European culture was naturally rejected because we were rejecting their rule as well. But as far as the Europeans, I'm not really sure how that happened. It seems like it had to have been extracted from us and displaced with some sort of global mindset, which leaves us kind of lacking any sort of consistency throughout our community. And I don't know how we're supposed to come together after that. And I think that's why you see all these little communities popping up under very random circumstances, such as cults and stuff like that. And everyone's seeking something, some connection.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point of World War II, to destroy the national and racial identity of Europe. That was the whole point. Sorry, Jared. Continue.
I was going to say that it's not just that the American Revolution, what also did it to us is our Civil War here in the United States was a big difference. They say portray it to be about race, when it wasn't about race. It was because South didn't want to pay extra taxes on top of what they were already paying. And they made it about race when the Confederate flag had nothing to do with the hatred for black. It had to do for the tyranny against the British rule that was still taking control of the northern side, because the northern side is still controlled by was always controlled by the British. That's why we had the taxes. And that's why we had that. We moved away to come to America to get away from those kingdom taxes and to have our own private life, to have that. And when we decided for those directions, the propaganda had always gone against those views. And it's been stuck in our heads for so long that we lose that ideology mindset of that who we are and what we need to stand for. And we need to bring back those true old values and what we've always had, but have been deprogrammed in our mindset, and bring that back to being unbrainwashed. And it's the main way I can see how in certain ways we've lost our way of sense when we can't come together as a bigger community that we should be, because everybody has their own views on things, and it's like the constant religious battles that we're always having, no matter where we go. The Christians, Catholics, pagans, it goes with the same way. But I see it as that we all need to communicate better and get the truth out there, and that ideology will come back. It's just the way we got to put it into a little bit easier way for a lot of these people who've been so desensitized and demonetized and programmed to believe in one certain way. It'll take time, and we got to do a little bit of a softer image and make it more knowledgeable for them. That makes sense to you guys. I don't know if I veered off topic or not, but that's what I picked up in the last thing what Jake was talking about. So
that's one of the major selling points for the New Way too, is that we're not really concerned about what your religion is within certain limits.
Within reason.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different, we have atheists, we have Christians, we have pagans, and for the most part, we get along. And when they stop getting along, they get kicked out, because that's what we stand for. We stand for community and healthy community. And I think many of us, I know Derek is a Christian, and so am I. And, that's really a secondary thing to me. And it's kind of, NS for me is a religious endeavor. And it's nice being able to see other people in there who are recognizing these divine laws. And these divine laws, you could attribute them to whatever pagan or Christian god. That's fine, and we can get along. And I think that's the awesome part I'm seeing starting to bloom in the New Way. I'd like to see more of that too. So like a brotherly love, where we can overcome those differences.
Exactly.
yeah, very, very true.
I think.
I think it's a lot easier when you're actually closer to somebody rather than just like screaming at people online.
Yeah, well.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's a great thing about the internet that brought us together. But yeah, I agree with what Derek said.
Yeah.
It's screaming over the internet doesn't always solve everything, and people take the internet a tad bit too serious, and that's a crying shame. I mean, it's a great tool for communication, but 90% of our people that sit behind the computer don't do anything, and need to get them as in the eyes of the pagans, get the Viking out of them and make them fight back and be who they should be, the warrior inside of them. Wake that up. But there's no way it's doing that. I can't, like I said before, I can't wait to see the future with it.
Yeah. Me too, bro. Me too. Our movement is global, I think. I think we have some guys from Russia, from Croatia, and that's very beautiful about it. That into our group, the guys are familiar with it. We have guys from different backgrounds We have police officers, we have soldiers, ex-soldiers, we have people who work in the finance, a lot of them. And I think that's a great thing, because with our different knowledge, we can put it together and grow. This is our movement, basically.
Yeah, we have members from. It's mostly the United States.
Mostly
but we do
United
have some
States,
from
yeah.
Europe. I mean, you're in Romania.
Romania,
We have a couple from like Sweden. We have quite a few from the UK.
Italy.
Couple in Italy. Yeah. And a few other countries that I won't mention all of them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We have a few in Canada. I mean, our real life activism is going to be focused pretty predominantly in the United States, just because it's easier to control quality of membership and stuff like that. But yeah, we absolutely encourage our European members to start their own stuff, get active in their communities, and then just be on good terms with us, basically.
That's the point. To be on good terms with your brethren, whether they're from Russia or North America, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We all come from the same continent, basically. We have the same, relatively the same genetic pattern.
Yeah, just the British Empire happened.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I think here is a fine place to end our first podcast. Not be too long, not too short. And this thing is going to be a regular thing, I hope. I mean, at least one podcast a week should suffice. And yeah. So, fine gentlemen, I bid you good evening.
It was nice talking to you guys.
Yep. Good afternoon from here.